A very warm good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, viewers. I'm Matthias Aufiku, news editor of the Namibian Sun newspaper. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Evening Review Show. Well, tonight we're joined in studio by Dr. Uazuva Kaumbi. He's the spokesperson of Ombara Vipuira Kapuuo. Of course, a very historical event coming up this weekend in Otjimbingwe. That will be the election for the new Paramount Chief, or rather Paramount Chief. Of course, we know the situation that is currently at play. There is, of course, PC Mushindeka who's on the one faction. So it seems like now there will be another election for another PC. And we're here, you're here for us to discuss how plannings are going, how things are going to play out. Maybe just take us through a bit as to what can be expected on Sunday. What is lined up?
Yeah, okay. For this coming weekend, like you say, it's a very historical weekend. Maybe historical in the sense not only for the election or the designation of the Paramount Chief or the Chief in terms of the Act, but also that you remember in 1863 on the 15th of June, that's when the first Paramount Chief was actually shall I say appointed or elected at Otjimbingwe also. That was just before German colonialism, at the time when the Hereros and the Namas were at each other's throats, you know. And the Hereros at that time, you remember, there were a number of clans, you know, different clans geographically spread all over the place. And that made it easy for the enemy to attack, you know. So that is when they decided, look guys, let's get together, let's form one united group, let's with one military command and so forth. And that is how the whole Paramount Chieftaincy was actually born in 1863. So we're there 160 years later, and we are going there to Otjimbingwe now to also designate from among the three candidates that we have to see which one will the ancestors or God or whoever will actually then anoint this person to lead us on the way forward.
Well, that's one part of the history. The other part of the history is that it's the first time that the Ovaherero community will be undertaking this mission while there is another PC, or at least as per the word around the community, there's already another PC currently who's installed. So that has never happened. So how do you see those organizing this event dealing with that situation that's prevailing?
Look, I mean, as far as we're concerned, the Professor Kashiwa and his people, they've done what they wanted to do. Look, that's water under the bridge. That's now history, so to speak. So historical from the point of view that is now history as far as we are concerned. Of course, they've always been, wherever there are people, doesn't matter which tribe or clan, there would always be political leadership contestations, you know. So it's all the way of how you manage it. So what happens that, I think I've been here even on this program also a few times, we've explained it, that we believe that the process that was followed by our colleagues, our brothers and sisters on the other side, the process was not correct. It was fatally flawed, and that is why we took it on, you know. It's actually before court, so I cannot go into much detail about that one. We feel that the process was flawed, and we believe now in this instance, they not only believe, but we know that the process that we are now following, that we have followed up to this stage, is the correct process, and that is the process that we are in terms of the nominations through the Chief Council, in terms of allowing competition or contestation. We have three candidates there. There was almost only one person, and the process was followed. Like I said, I will not regurgitate that. So we believe that this is the process that should be followed. So as far as we're concerned, these processes are two parallel processes. We will go ahead with the designation from among the three candidates that we have, or if the Senate, because that is now the body that will be sitting over the weekend, is called the Senate, and that is the highest decision-making body in terms of our customary law. There's of course no provision made for it in the Traditional Authorities Act, because it's a customary institution altogether. So what happens that then most people will be arriving on Thursday. Friday morning there's provision then to go to the graveside. You know, it's a historical process, historical place. You know that Chief Willem Iowa, he lived there, and a lot of the people, even Mahara, there were a lot of there. It was actually one of the first settlements, the first missionary settlement also, you know. The Rhenish Mission actually established, you know, a shop there. So there are a lot of historical issues there. You know, the trade between, you know, Europe and the locals, the purchasing of the weapons and the trade in cattle and things like that. So Otjimbingwe is a very, very historical place.
Yeah.
A lot of things that were happening there, you know. So what will happen is that people then be taken to these historical sites in and around Otjimbingwe. That's now the Friday, the Friday morning. And then it will be about what, maybe just 1 hour or so, and then we'll be back at the commando. That will now be taking place at the commando. And then there will be solidarity messages. We've invited other chiefs as well, you know, who go with us, who are in solidarity with us. They will then be giving their messages, then, you know, and then of course there will be a lunch, and then from there we'll now break away for the persons who are now eligible to sit in the Senate. The voting members will then be there's a hall, it's a separate hall away from the commando, where the meeting will take place. So they will then hammer out issues around protocol, around the elections. There's an independent electoral committee that has been set up by Ombara Kapuuo. So they will be handling this, so we hopefully will not repeat mistakes like other people who will remain anonymous for now, issues that were made there. So I'm also not involved in that committee. It's a totally independent committee. They will then set up the rules, they will explain it to the Senate. Senate will hopefully adopt those rules as to what happens there. Will there be by consensus? Will there be ballot, secret ballot? And what if there is a tie, you know, and what happens? You know, will there be a runoff? All those issues will then be hammered out on the Friday afternoon, hopefully even into Friday evening. So the Friday is just administrative issues, you know. And then the Saturday morning, there will now be the official opening for you guys, the new media, the media, and other invited guests also who will be there. So maybe a session of about 1 hour or so, just to say, look guys, we've officially started now, and maybe to officially introduce the candidates also to the media and to whoever is there. And then again, there will be a breakaway. We'll then thank you for coming, and then we'll escort you out of the hall. And then the serious business now starts. Hopefully we'll have agreed the previous day on the processes, and then the election process starts, or the process of arriving at the decision of who our next Paramount Chief is going to be.
I know you mentioned earlier on that the issue of the court case and so on, that's parallel and independent from this. But there are some who harbor the feeling to say that Chief Kapuuo is the one who took this matter to court. Why is he not patient enough to allow the court to make a decision before he calls for this?
No, it's a fair observation. It's a very fair observation. All we are saying is that this process has got nothing to do really with the court case. They are related. But we are saying is that what was taken to court is not so much the person who was ultimately emerged, but the process that left there. And we are saying now that this process that we are following is the one that should have been followed. And also these court cases, you know, they can last for 3, 4, 5 years. You know, like the Ambukushu, or the ones in Kavango, I mean, it's almost going for 7 years now. And you know, with the Wambanderu also, these cases can last forever. And then there will be a vacuum, you know. So we're saying therefore that let's follow this process that we think is the correct process in terms of the customary law, and then we have our person there. And then of course ultimately it's up to the minister. Remember, we don't decide ultimately, because this is the recognized traditional authority. So this application will be made to the minister, just like our colleagues did. Our cousins, they submitted their application, is with the minister, although we objected to that, of course. And then we will also do the same thing. They may, of course, object as well. So then it will be in the hands of the minister to decide now what to do. Will he choose between these two, or will he order a new process altogether? But at least we'll have, we won't have a vacuum on either side, you know? And that is really the idea. And we hope that this thing will be resolved as soon as possible. And then maybe that will also hasten some kind of amicable solution. Maybe the minister will then say, look, okay, guys, now you have 2 people, let's get together. What do you think I should do? You know, how should I choose between these 2? Or, you know what I'm saying? Maybe there will then be a solution offered, and then the court case will not be necessary anymore, and then we'll move ahead.
Do you think there's still room for reconciliation?
There's always room for reconciliation. I mean, look, we've reconciled with people who... Nelson Mandela had security guards from people who put him in jail for 27 years. That Noyoma and you know, Pamba, when they came here, the excellencies, people who, you know, tortured them, people who put them in exile, they've reconciled, you know. So I'm sure, I don't think there's you never say no to a possibility of peace, you know.
Yeah.
Peace is always a possibility, and we must always give peace a chance and reconciliation.
Yeah.
And for our brothers, look, we have not fought, we have not beaten up each other or anything, except for that one incident, I think, where one person was shot and so on. But we keep believing, we keep hoping and praying that, yes, that someday, at some stage, somewhere down the line, we shall reconcile.
You can still sit around the
We
fire.
can sit around, eat nyama, slaughter, dance, Oshina, you know, muhiba and things like that. You know, have a bit of a maire. You know, this day it's everybody's dream. Yeah. You know, it's everybody's dream. So not only with him, with our cousins, Professor Kashiwa, but also with the other chieftainships. You know, we have the Kambadembis, we have Ovaherero. So and in 1863 when they met, they formed one chieftaincy, you know, the Paramount Chieftaincy. And that is why we're saying hopefully the historical significance of this weekend will maybe herald that spirit as well. They say, look guys, after this, not only OTA, but all of the Ovaherero, Vambanderu, Vahimba, all of that, can we get together again and rekindle? Of course, Vambanderu will be a separate group, but even then there will still be a unified kind of leadership, governance structure that we can hammer out and move forward in peace. Everyone wants peace because there's so many things we want to do. We're already old. You can look at my hair. We really want to do other things. You know, there's so many challenges in our community, socio-economic challenges, education everywhere. You know, the livestock, and you know, so there are so many things that we really like to tackle, and the governance is just one aspect of it. Maybe not even the most important. But we know that without leadership, again, there are problems. You know, so let's resolve this leadership issue, so that now we can do the real business of being a community. What does it mean to be a traditional community? What are the issues that are there, and how do we resolve them? Hopefully, with the new leadership, whomever it may be. Really, I've got no you know, personal choice as to who it should be and who I shall support or not support. For me, is it a person who goes through the correct process? It's a person who enjoys reasonable support among our people and who's got the vision that we think will actually bring our people together and bring development to our people. So that even when we talk to the Germans and all of those things for reparations, you know what I mean, we have a solid leadership. That's really the important thing. Who it is,
I asked that deliberately, and deliberately so before you go for a break, because the discourse, at least at the ground level, is so extreme that people feel, you get this feeling that it will be so difficult to unite the two groups. But at the leadership level, there seems to be this diplomatic type of conversation happening. I don't know if it's just cosmetic or genuine. Maybe just run us through it a bit.
No, look, it's genuine.
How is it at the top you have this peaceful type of conversation, but your followers, the type of things they utter towards each other is worrying, and then begs the question, can the two sides unite?
No, it's a fair observation, and it's always like this, and that is now the challenge of leadership, you know. These variable, they call it this variable geometry, or, you know, the different levels of the leadership and the rank. It's supposed to be one. We're supposed to have one common vision, you know. And that's what I'm saying, that the person who comes in now, but this from our side, should be a person who will engender, you know, this kind of conversation, even among our people. You know, it's very difficult because at the beginning there are some people, of course, who take some of these things very, very seriously. It's like a life and death issue. You know, it's just like with political parties, you know. People who beat up each other at the villages, but in parliament, these guys drink a cup of tea together. I remember one guy who went to parliament, and you know, he used to listen to how Honorable Kachiongwa so rest in peace, used to attack these swapper guys. And then one day somebody invited him to the parliament cafeteria. And then he saw Honorable Kachiongwa and Honorable Moses Garweb, they're cracking jokes. You know what I'm saying? You know? So I said, so this is how it works. And even with Animal Farm, if you read the book. So it's always like this, that there are certain levels of understanding, different levels of understanding of what it is actually at stake. For some people, it's like, look, it's a stake. Just like with soccer clubs, and also, you know, how we go on about Manchester United and so on. I'm just saying Alex Ferguson doesn't care, you know, about Wenger and so on, you know. But we go on about it. So there's certain emotions that are invested in these sort of contestations, and people handle them differently. And there are people also, of course, on the rank and file side who also understand very maturely, who are also pushing conversations about, guys, in the end, we are one brother and sister.
Yeah.
You know, we still have to reconcile with us, our Wambo cousins who ran away from us.
Yeah.
Let
me just interrupt you there. We'll just go for a short break, and I'll allow you to finish your thought process on that. Well, to our viewers, wait for a short break, and we'll be back to continue this conversation.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back from the short break. Well, Dr. Kaumbi, let's move the conversation to another specter. The issue of the instruments of power of the Ovaherero Traditional Authority. The handing over and so on, how does that work? And I'm asking this in hindsight with the issue of PC Kashiwa already being there. Are there certain instruments that ought to be given to a designated PC that is now currently in the hands of PC Kashiwa? And how will it work for the person who will be elected and designated on Sunday?
Yeah, look, a lot of these things are symbolic, you know. It's not like symbols of power or instruments of power, as in, for instance, the state president, where you have the seal, and I think there are certain instruments. They're even defined in the Constitution.
Okay, let me give you an example. The commando, for instance.
Yeah.
The shrines and where you are going to gather this weekend. What if that faction decides they are going there? Those are the type of things we are looking at.
Yeah. Okay, those are not really instruments of power. I just wanted to distinguish that. There are other things that people were using. I remember at the it's called the coronation, purportedly of our colleague. By the way, he's my age mate. That's why, Professor Kashiwa. Is, for instance, they would give a kiri and then they would maybe put a hat. Or I didn't follow all the things, and maybe the chair on which he's sitting. But that's just what they created for their ceremony. To say, and then remember with the Advocate Rukoro also, they would have a certain dress, and
so each one comes in
scarves,
with what they feel.
And things. Yeah, exactly. They say, look, what will distinguish this person? If for instance these two people are sitting, how will we know who is the Paramount Chief, for instance? So it's just symbolism. That's what I'm saying. Unlike with the state power, where these things are defined, and if somebody holds that gavel or or that thing, then that's really it. If he says, look, guys, boom, that he's the only person who can do that, because it's also legally enforced and so forth and so forth. But the other things like the commandos, those are really institutions of the people, irrespective of who the Paramount Chief is, because they were not created by them. These are people during the times of war, whether it's against the Namas or the Germans or against any other invading force. People forget that there were South Africans also, the Zulus who came here and fought, against the Hereros. They call it So these guys came with the shields and so on, So all of us use this. This belongs to everybody. So the ideal situation is that we give each other a chance, Like for instance, the one in Okahanja would go and apply for access not only to the white flag or the red flag, because the red flag member is an institution on its own. It's not part of the OTA, although it's associated, So they've got their own, the Lion and the Secretary General, the patron, and then they've got their Hope Commandos, their Field Marshals. So these are the guys who are in charge of these institutions. So if you want to make use of them, then you go to them and you book. And you say, look, now I want to use this, for instance, And even in Swakopmund, we had to change dates. Remember, for the long walk, or the reparation walk, we came the weekend, and then the other guys came another weekend, and so forth, So those belong to everybody. The same with Katutura Commando number 1 or number 2. So we can all use it, but it all depends on how you go about, booking it and so on. The same with it's called the Herero House, the Red Roof House, there next to the Commando, where Chief Riruako used to live. Those are all, and I think some of them also now belong to the Heritage Council, just like some of the shrines also in Okahanja. They're actually properties of the Heritage Council. So they're not even just ownership of the Ovaherero people. The same thing now with the shrine now that is being built, the museum at the residence of Paramount Chief Hoze Riruako into Assisi, in Aminois. So these are all, they belong to all of us. In fact, now the way it is now, it's going to be a national museum, so even you can go, anybody can go, but there are obviously protocols as to how you gain access to that and so forth and so forth. So that is how we look at it. So those are not really instruments of power. And you must understand, even when you read the Traditional Communities Act, remember, it's the symbolism of recognizing that there are different levels of existence for the people. The traditional community is very well defined. People have got their own ways of worship, their ways of, conducting their lives and so on, So we need to recognize that and the ways of governing themselves. So that is really why the Traditional Authority Act came about and why we recognize the traditional communities. Of course, there are some people who take it a lot further than that and want to give it a bigger power than it actually has. But it depends, it really differs from person to person.
The championing of the reparations fight is, of course, one of the biggest tasks awaiting whoever will emerge on Sunday. What type of persona do you think is needed for this mammoth task?
Of the reparations?
Yes.
Look, this reparations is a historical necessity, It is the Germans murdered our people, slaughtered our people, and so natural justice demands that if you make a wrong, you must then make it good, So obviously we shall need somebody or a persona that obviously pursue this with passion, but then in the process also unite the people, Because that is a very good point that you are raising, and that is another example that also gives us hope for the unity. There will come a point where we say, look, hey guys, the Germans are now playing us, like in the past, They say, look, no, we have the money, but now who shall we talk to? Shall we talk to Kashiwa? Shall we talk to maybe Ndivashia, the new Paramount Chief, or whoever, you know what I'm saying, And then we say, look, hey guys, what do we do? Let's, for the purpose, just like we did in 1863. So look, right, for the purpose of these Namas now killing all our people, because they were going from house to house because we were not united, we said, look, let's get together. So they may arise an event, and hopefully it is the reparation struggle, where we shall come together and say, hey guys, let's get together. Look, the titles are not important. Now, Paramount Chief, those are artificial titles, in fact, Paramount Chief is actually an English invention, because the British did not want to call another person a king of another tribe, because they had a king there in England, they would have queens. So they come here because Ombara, I'm sure even in your language, Ombara is not a chief. Ombara is like a king, King Kauluma, Mkwanilwa, and so on and so on. So we had our own terminology that signified a certain level of authority, So this persona will have to then dig into that and say, but how do I bring our people together in order to fight for this? Now, to fight for the reparations is one thing. What if we succeed in different levels, for instance? Because there will be already we are fighting, should we accept the joint declaration or not, for instance. Let's say, for instance, all of us agree that we reject this joint declaration, and now we for some reason or the other, we push the German to a situation where it now concedes that, yes, it was genocide. We are now going to pay reparations properly now, not this guy, 1.1 billion thing, properly now. Now that will be another battle again. Guys, how do we receive this? And who will be in charge of this? Let's create institutions. So and there will be enough for everybody. You know what I'm saying? There's enough to go around, so don't worry about who's in charge and how we call him and so on. We may even come up with new titles now. You know what I'm saying? And say, look, forget about Paramount Chief. Let's come up maybe with the Chief Executive Officer of the Ovaherero, whatever, or Prime Minister, like they have among the Zulus, they have, I think, Kachaputelezi, I think Prince or Prime Minister or something like that they used to have. So we may, these things evolve, as time goes on, and that's what the level of maturity and understanding that we need to sort of pursue. And this persona, back to your persona, we are praying that will be the person who will look at this and not exploit the disunity that is there, but actually foster a unity, so that when we talk to the Germans, sorry, I'm not excluding the Namibian government. I'm just talking about the as our primary enemy, you know, or primary adversary in this case, as the person who actually caused us the injury to us, you know. Of course, together with the Namibian government, together with everybody in solidarity, but the primary, you know, contestants or the primary persons who will pursue and persecute their struggle, obviously the Heroes and the Namas and so on, you know, and our Bandiru cousins, you know. So that is the person must, and it's very difficult, you know, somehow elevate himself or herself, hopefully, beyond the mundane squabbles, you know. Yeah, and say, look, hey guys, there's more important things to do, you know. It's almost 100 and how many years now? 120 years, almost 119 years, you know, and we are here. So this thing may last longer. It may even outlast my children and our children's children. So let's look beyond that. Like the Chinese, they have a 1,000-year perspective, you know. Yeah. And say, look, 1,000 years, how do we want this thing to look, you know? And then maybe work backward and say, look, okay, for us to achieve that, let's take the next step. Should be actually based on that, you know, and so on. So that is the sort of reasoning, the sort of thinking and persona. But like some of the people say on Facebook, where do we get a person like this? And some people say never, you know, that person does not exist. But we keep praying and hoping that we shall be able to find that person. Whether it is now in Otjimbingwe over the weekend or somewhere down the line. That person is there waiting for us.
Well, Dr. Kaumbi, thank you very much for your time this evening.
It's a pleasure.
We wish you well on Sunday and going forward.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. To our audience, that's it from the Evening Review team tonight. Thank you for staying tuned and have a pleasant evening.
Yeah.